Escape the room employees. What is the weirdest thing you've seen someone do in one of the rooms? Actual escape room employee here. One couple couldn't agree on how to solve the puzzles and broke up inside the room. Another couple had a guy surprise the girl with a proposal. Another couple got a horror themed escape room and just sat on the floor and cuddled. They didn't look scared. They didn't bother to solve anything either. They just cuddled with all the creepy props and sound effects surrounding them. I guess they couldn't find a creepy motel to cuddle in. Started working in an escape room around 3 months ago. This is not really a weird thing, but more a cute one. One day a dude called and told us he was proposing to his girlfriend and that they were both huge fans of escape rooms. So my boss and came up with a cool idea how we could change our escape room to make it more romantic, and that at the end of the escape they wouldn't find the key of the room but the ring and a bottle of champagne. We also told the dude the solutions of some of the puzzles to make sure they would actually come to the end of the room. It was the cutest thing I have ever seen. The way these two worked together in the room and how excited the dude was when they found the ring and the champagne at the end and he asked to marry her. They were both in tears. So were my boss and I. She said yes. After that they stayed with us for a bit before heading their own way. It is still one of my favorite evenings and one of the reasons I love my newfound job so much. At our establishment we have a room called Jailbreak with a fake door towards the very end. It's covered with plywood. This girl takes one look at it and says jail, break, and charges the door full force and breaks through. Someone cleared all the boxes and locks off of a table in the corner, laid down on it, and went to sleep until the group escaped. We give people a box for them to bring in, so they can store their belongings while they play. One time, about halfway in, an inquisitive older man started going through their own stuff. He pulled out a purse and shouts, guys, I found some. This is our stuff, isn't it? It was hilarious. Like most rooms, we have cameras all throughout the game so we can keep any eye on players, give hints based on what puzzle they're on, and watch out for any shenanigans. So ours is a prison themed escape. At one point there are 3 cells that need to be opened in order. One of them has a live actor in it that messes with you the entire time, even after you rescue him. Anyway, each cell is pretty much the same, with a toilet, shelf, and a few other items. One guy was pretty drunk and repeatedly put bones and other in his pants to get a laugh out of his teammates, but they stopped paying attention to him while trying to actually make their escape. He must have gotten bored being so drunk and not caring about the escape room. He leaves the main group and heads back to his prison cell area. I'm watching on the cameras and see he's not with the rest of the group. So I start clicking around trying to find him. Sure enough, he's in a jail cell hovering over a toilet, taking a piss. There's no plumbing. They're definitely just props. We shut their game down on the spot. His group was not happy with him at all. After they left I had the pleasure of soaking up his piss with a mop little by little. And it was after that night we added the anyone visibly intoxicated will not be allowed to participate rule. My friends and I did The Unknown Room. Spoiler more than which is a horror saw themed escape room. At one point, the phone in the room rang and our friend picked it up. He said that we have to step away from him while they talk so we can't hear. Weird, but okay. After he gets off the phone he starts clucking like a chicken and circles the table in the middle. The employees mentioned something about sacrificing one member to get a hint, and we thought this was it. So like some crackhead amateur cult we all started clucking like chickens and circling around the table with him. He was just ducking with us less than. Edit. Added a spoiler tag because people were complaining. What I said doesn't really spoil anything as there are numerous outcomes for the room, but here you go. Just started working at Escape the Room and we have rules about not jumping out the windows and not sticking keys into wall sockets because it has all happened before. People have tried to climb through the ceiling tiles on multiple occasions. We now have to mention in the pre-game spiel that it's not necessary to climb through the ceiling tiles. My job often reminds me of this scene in The Office. People laugh at the things we mention, but anything we mention that you don't have to do has probably been attempted before. One of my co-workers said that a group started getting really destructive in the room, to the point where they literally threw the computer on the floor to see if something was hidden inside. There wasn't anything hidden inside. They need to use a special magnifying glass to read the monitor. We abruptly removed them from the room after that. They actually ended up coming back another day and were extremely well behaved. I guess they learned their lesson. Former escape room, not escape the room, employee. Everything everyone else has said absolutely believable. People are unbelievably destructive. I've seen people rip outlets out of walls. We had to warn them not to stick keys in. Dismantle furniture and electronics. Pull vent covers off the air ducts. Physically bend back file cabinet drawers to get around the lock. They'll write all over all the clues. Even deliberately go against the rules you set because they think you were trying to trick them. We had a group reset the password on our computer, so we had to wipe it and reinstall everything. Lesson learned for the game makers. Always have an admin account. A woman decided to literally throw, every non-clue glass object into a trash can, leaving me with 10 minutes to reset the room and clean up a mountain of broken glass. A favorite was she said not to use the fire extinguisher unless there's a fire. And this says warning. Flammable. But the weirdest thing is the waves of groupthink. It's noticeable to everyone. My boss even warned me about it my first day. A meaningless picture might be hanging on the wall, completely ignored by every group for months. Until suddenly you have a wave of 10 groups in a row who take it off the wall and dismantle it because they've become convinced it means something. They'll draw new conclusions from a note that have never been drawn before. And the game makers never intended. They'll follow the same incorrect process for solving a puzzle that we haven't seen before. Or make the same arithmetic decryption errors. They'll misread things the same way. Even mishear audio clues the same way, as in, repeat the same nonsense words to describe what they heard. They'll physically destroy the same props, locks, or set pieces game after game. And then it will stop. And no one will do that thing again for months. Maybe it's confirmation bias. Maybe it's little factors like how I deliver my speech that day or the weather. I don't know. But it is undeniably weird. Edit. Holy ducking it, this took off. I've been called out for incorrectly using the word groupthink. So please consider it used here to describe waves of many people doing the same very odd thing. The guy gave some rules to us when we were doing the room. The first rule he gave us was please keep your clothes on. We did an escape room one time where there were these jars with severed limbs in them. When we got out, we commented to the guy running it that we found it interesting that the jars were cement glued shut. Cement glued to the shelf. And the shelf screwed to the wall. Seemed like overkill to us. Well, apparently the reason they do this was because another group had managed to pry the jars away from the shelf and open the jars. This is about when they realized, watching the cameras, that something was going on. So they rush in to see what's up and he hears, "Guys, we have to drink the water." The nasty part was the water was out of the local river a few blocks away. Just to get that dirty murky look. Did a space station themed room. We got paired with a mother and her adult sons. The sons did just fine but mom was clueless. There was a prop fire extinguisher on the wall that she was certain had to be for something. For an hour she wandered around aimlessly carrying a fire extinguisher. I'm not an escape room employee, but I asked this exact same question when I went to an escape room a few months ago. The guy working there said a man pulled out a pocket knife and started cutting the carpet out, convinced that there were clues under there. Escape room employee here. I've had about 150 groups in my room and the weirdest are the ones where people solve the main puzzle and just don't leave the room. They have found the key or device they need to leave and just wander around clueless. Oh Jesus. How can I forget this one? A little 12-year kid came up to me before the room and asked, "Are you in the room with us?" I replied, "No, but I'll be in the control room." To which he replied, "Okay. But, so we can torture you when you don't give us any good hints." When they were in the room he proceeded to say, "Give us some good hints, you rotten child." Another one. Some guy was convinced something was hidden under a chair that was screwed to the floor. He started kicking it. Had to stop the game and go into the room to tell him he should stop doing that. One time a guy brought his own flashlight. Had to tell him that is against the rules of the game. One time a guy ripped the green laser out of its very secured spot in the room. Had to stop the game and tell him to put it back. Had a girl freak out because of the music and got her out ASAP. Yeah, you really get a taste of all the layers of society inside these rooms. I have way more stories. It was only a one-off escape room I designed for a university society event. But one guy was so desperate to find clues he tried to disassemble the wooden casing around a radiator. It scared me because I didn't own the room we were doing this in. So I could have been on serious trouble. Went to an escape the room with some friends on Friday. My one friend took his shirt off 4 times. The crazier thing that happened though was how we solved it. We were supposed to get the word Waterloo from a series of clues and use a dictionary to find that the Battle of Waterloo was in 1815. Use that 4-digit number to get a key that let us out of the room. Well, we got the word Eterlaw instead of Waterloo. We assumed that it was an anagram and we used a word scrambler to get the word aerolite from it. Using the dictionary we found that aerolite was invented in 1815. Well, we got the key and we confidently told the employee how we figured it out. He was dumbfounded. I'm not exactly sure what the odds of solving the room like this is. But if someone could solve that for us, that'd be dank. My friends and I have been trying to figure it out since it happened. Actual escape room employee here. The weirdest thing I saw was a young couple. In our hardest room, they asked for our hardest. Who, when they couldn't solve our puzzles, took off their shoes and just sat down and talked. When I would send them hints to get them to start playing again, the lady would call me a commie. It was weird. For example, the lady would pick up a red clue paper that goes with a pyramid puzzle. They would stare at it, then put it to the side. I type in a hint, the red papers go with the pyramid. She looks up the screen. We were getting to that. Commie. I'm not a communist. And the room isn't communist themed in the slightest. Escape room employee here. In one of our rooms, we have an actor pose as a spy. And the people in the room had to solve a case to figure out who the traitor was. After they finished the puzzles, it turns out the traitor was actually the spy the actor was playing. The spy then pulls an obviously prop gun, orange tip and whatnot. And the group has to defuse a fake bomb. One of the groups that did this room was a police squad that was doing this to Bond. When the actor pulled the fake gun and said some cheesy lines, the actor was promptly tackled and restrained until the cops realized it was all a game. Edit, it's defuse, and not diffuse. I'm a dang old goofus. Finally, my time to shine. We had a group that was evidently high. They weren't disruptive or anything. So we just briefed them and took them to their room. So far so good. We have cameras and microphones inside the rooms. That way we know what hints to give out. Another important thing is that the room they were at had a small fountain. And since the particular aesthetic of this room was dusty, that water was filthy. I'm talking murky, brown yellow, mud water. At one point one of the guys says he is thirsty, and proceeds to stick his mouth onto the fountain stream and take a hefty gulp of the water. We spend a second of shock guffaw, and tell them that drinking the ducking water isn't part of the puzzle. The guy reads the hint and just says that's alright. He proceeded to do the same thing 4 times and drank the whole fountain. Small fountain, but still like a gallon of mud water. We've had more inconvenient things happen, but that still remains as the worst thing I've ever seen. For some reason people like to put the flashlight that one of our rooms has in their mouth when they know they aren't the only ones who have used them. Some people put them between their legs, in the crack of their ass as a joke, and not to mention just roll around the ground a majority of the time. Besides that, I've seen relationships almost fall apart. One couple insisted on going into our most challenging room, just the 2 of them, and we let them know this was probably not going to be a good idea or enjoyable for them. But they didn't really care. You could tell the guy wanted to impress the girl, but both of them were dumber than rocks. I had to sit for an entire hour watching them get literally nowhere through the first puzzle, arguing with each other and then sitting in moments of awkward silence. I offered to give them help and said I would just tell them if they wanted at this point, but they refused. Also, people love to not listen to our disclosure we have to give before we send groups into rooms and kick in our events and break through our drywall and ceilings when we specifically say not to, and put tape that says not a part of the game in bright yellow colors. I worked at a room escape place for a year in grad school. I learned very quickly to give thorough warnings at the start of each show that breaking things, assaulting actors. This was trapped in a room with a zombie. and sexual harassment were not cool. Yes. Literally had guys harass the duck-eyeing zombie mid-show. Perhaps the most interesting phenomenon I noticed was just how much personality factors into the teamwork involved. I've seen a lot of shy people or people otherwise lacking in confidence be completely on the right track, only to be steamrolled by the loudest, more confident, strongest personalities in the room. Maybe it shouldn't have come as so much of a surprise, but I watched perfectly smart, reasonable people actively ignore good points, logic, and strong evidence in service of a cult of personality of charismatic players. The whole thing felt like a depressing study on group dynamics. Edit, changed it on to harass for greater accuracy. I've explained circumstances in follow-up comments. I own an escape room and I once guided couple into one of our more moody ambience room and they told me we would totally base a 6th dungeon off this vibe. See? You even have a desk in here to get started. Also you see people's true parenting skills. My favorite quote is from a lovely family that went into a room in 5 minutes and the father gathered his overeager children and told them you're being assholes. We're in a huge tech area and we get a lot of corporate groups with some very important people. A week ago we had a Fortune 500 CEO through and he walked up to my staff and started bragging about his 50,000 Instagram followers. Basically trying to impress college kids. We definitely giggled about that one, especially when we looked him up and he had like 300 followers. But hey, he killed it in the room. The most depressing it I saw was a tired looking couple who brought in their bespectacled, NASA shirt wearing, 8-year-old geek of a son in to have some fun. The parents couldn't have been more discouraging to him. He was excitedly bouncing around the room pointing out things that he thought were clues while the parents dismissed every idea he had and told him to stop getting so excited. The parents took charge and proceeded to ignore the obvious clues he was pointing out and spend most of the time pursuing dead ends. Sad part is his instincts were more often than not correct, but his parents just didn't listen and refused to let him explore and try stuff out. Hopefully his curiosity and enthusiasm survives them. A little weird, but mostly funny and heartwarming. At my escape room it's a fairly common occurrence for first generation kids to bring their parents from various countries: Vietnam, Bangladesh, Italy, Spain. We have many people in this city with them to the room. Even though they don't speak English, I always feel bad for this reason, because a lot of the puzzles directly depend on English wordplay and stuff like that. But they seem to have fun just being with their kids. So we all have fun together. One time a family came in that seemed to fit this profile. I'm not sure which country of origin they had, but they seemed Asian American to me. But I am an uneducated buffoon, so I couldn't tell you what language the parents spoke. They spoke very sparingly in their original language, and the children spoke in accented English. They went through the room, the children solving most of the puzzles, and the father following them around silently with a notepad and pen, nodding and writing things as they found clues. They got out, I took their picture, and they left, and everyone seemed to have had a good time. When we clean up the room, we have to rip several of the pages off from the notepad so people can't see the clues or even the indents of the clues people had written down from previous games. I was looking forward to seeing what language the father had been writing in the whole time. I reset the room, then get to the notepad, only to find the first page in perfect English. What if we can't get out? Do we die in here? I burst out laughing, realizing this man was hilarious and I wanted to chase him down and take his family to lunch. Then I flipped to the next page. Day 56. Our rations are running low. We fear for our lives. We are thinking of cannibalism. It was my best experience working there and I'll never forget it as long as I live. My racist ass got owned in the funniest, most heartwarming way possible. TL. Doctor, I assumed a man didn't speak English, but he had written a whole hilarious journal in English in the notepad and now I'm a better person. Links to pictures of the notepad on Imgur above.